So before we start our first session, we'll hear a few words of welcome from the organiser of today's event, my husband, Mark Birbeck, the founder of the Our Fight campaign group. Mark, we should give him a round of applause.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you very much for coming, and it's very encouraging to see so many hands went up of people who came to our previous event. So the title is Remaking the Promise of Never Again. And in particular, we're going to focus today on the Holocaust itself. Some years ago, most people who were critical of ideas around the Holocaust would have been outright denialists, denying that the Holocaust even happened. You'll be familiar with David Irving and the famous cases, his writings, Deborah Lipstadt, the case, and people would have claimed literally that the Holocaust didn't happen. But other than in the sort of lower regions of Twitter threads, you don't really come across that idea so much nowadays. And what you get more commonly is the idea of relativizing the Holocaust and the idea of Holocaust inversion. Now, relativizing the Holocaust, what people are doing is they're saying that the Holocaust was no different than, say, the genocide in Rwanda or in Bosnia or in Cambodia, or perhaps the deaths on the Eastern Front in the Second World War. So they're saying that there's nothing specific about the Holocaust. There's nothing significant about the Holocaust in its own right. And that means that the lessons that it can teach us are just vague lessons about being nice to people or about where prejudice may lead. And as a consequence of that, you'll see adverts like the one we saw a few days ago at the Super Bowl, where we had Snoop Dogg talking to somebody else, and they're saying, I don't like you because of where you live, and I don't like you because of the color of your skin. And this is actually apparently a lesson about avoiding the Holocaust and about avoiding these ideas that might lead to the Holocaust. So it becomes bland, it becomes mundane, it becomes devoid of any real significance, and particularly it loses its historical significance. It loses its historical context. So saying that Jews are not central to the Holocaust, or what some people call to de-Judify the Holocaust, is obviously deeply insulting to the memory of the 6 million Jews that were murdered. And we saw on Holocaust Memorial Day, or the weekend just before Holocaust Memorial Day, our campaign group, Our Fight, along with another group, Stop the Hate, who you'll see have a stall out there, we organized a display in Parliament Square where we had a Yad Vashem exhibition printed out. And we held up this exhibition for the public to come and look at. And there were people holding this display who were themselves descendants of people who were slaughtered during the Holocaust. And this display, which you would have thought would have been the ideal remembrance, the ideal activity for remembering the Holocaust, and to go along with Holocaust Memorial Day a few days later, you'd have thought this would have been a dignified and respected event. At the same time in Parliament Square, another group were setting up what they called Genocide Memorial Day. And this is an example of what I'm talking about, relativizing the Holocaust. And they managed to create a video of what they were doing, which basically presented our activity as a counter-protest to their activity. So the significance of that, Yad Vashem, the leading museum and resource around the Holocaust, their exhibition being displayed on the streets of London was being presented as a challenge to Genocide Memorial Day with all of its relativization of the genocide. So that's something that obviously is should be a warning sign for us, should be alarm bells should be ringing, that this is something that we need to challenge. But it gets worse than that, because if you relativize the Holocaust, if you say that the Holocaust is no different to any of these other genocides, then you actually create the shocking possibility that perhaps Jews could also commit a Holocaust. And that's really what we're seeing now after the events of October the 7th, the response to that. If there's no significant anti-Semitic component to the Holocaust, then Jews and Israel itself could be responsible for a Holocaust. And that's what we've seen now. That's what Holocaust inversion is. It's the idea of accusing Israel and Jews of the very crimes that were present in the Holocaust. And what that also does, even more disturbingly, is it creates the possibility, well, if they're bad now, then maybe they don't really deserve our sympathy back then. And then with one final swoop, with one final step, it absolves society, it absolves our modern world of any guilt over the Holocaust, because the Holocaust was about Jews, and Jews are now committing a Holocaust. So all of these ideas we need to challenge. We've been talking for a while now about challenging these. And in particular today, the reason we've called it Remaking the Promise is because we want to put the component of anti-Semitism back into the heart of the Holocaust. And so the sessions that we've got today will help us do that. We've got our opening panel, which will look at some of the terminology and the history. We've got a panel in the middle of the day, middle of the afternoon, on the arts and the representation of the Holocaust. And then in the evening, we've got Brendan O'Neill doing the final plenary. So hopefully you can get stuck into some of these debates, ask tricky questions, have a look at how we can reorient this discussion. This is the beginning of a year of activities, so we want to make sure that that feeling that we all had on Holocaust Memorial Day when the TV was forgetting to mention Jews, or when we were standing in Parliament Square and watching these Genocide Memorial Day protests, we want to make sure that we don't have that feeling come 2026. So come January 2026, we want to make sure that we've built up enough head of steam to challenge this set of ideas. Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mark.